Hi there. In this video, I'm going to show you how to join or merge two data frames. Now, there are a number of ways to do this, and I'll be exploring these in a series of upcoming videos in addition to this one. To start the ball rolling, I'm going to give you two data frames. One is called inventory and the other is called sales. This is very simple data, but it needs to be so we can focus on the mechanics of the joining mechanisms. So first off, inventory has three part numbers in it. And these are numeric part numbers along with a description and a unit price. There's also a companion data frame called sales, which gives transactional information on each of those part numbers. As an example, part number one, we sold 23 of those in the East region, 100 in the West, and 44 in the North. We sold part three, some of part three, and then there's a part 110. Now it's interesting to note that we did not sell any of part number two. And it's also interesting to note that we have a part 110 that is not in the inventory. This is a classic problem with data. It doesn't always follow the pattern that you would like. Now, I'm going to give you a motivating assignment here, which is pretty simple. Using these two data frames along with a join command, I want to create a single table that contains a sales report for all part numbers, even if there were no sales of that part number or it wasn't in the current inventory. The join that is most appropriate for this is called a full join, which will attempt to involve all the rows from both data frames. Now, to effectively merge or combine data frames, we have to determine an appropriate key. The key in this case is pretty easy to identify. In both data tables, we have a column called part number, which can be used to match rows. Now, calling the full join is really easy. We just give it the two data frames that we're attempting to join. The matching mechanism works like this. In the inventory data frame, with respect to part number one, we have that part number and the information. We want to marry that, or we want to combine it with the information for part number one from the sales data frame. So you can see that there are three occurrences there. Now, if you look in the result, you see that we have three occurrences that match the three transactions. If we look at part number two in the inventory data frame, it does not show up in the cells, but the full join wants to use all the records in each data frame, so it still includes it. Now notice what happens. Because there is no information for quantity in sales region, we have missing values. R has no choice but to insert a missing value. If we look at the third part number, the radiator, we see that it gets matched with one record from the sales data frame. And finally, we have a part number of 110 that does not show up in the inventory data frame. Ergo, there is no description or price information. Next, I would like to show you another type of join called the inner join, which will help us in the following assignment. I would like to create a merged or joint table that shows only information for parts listed in inventory and only those parts that had at least one sales transaction. In effect, I only want rows that are in common based on the part number key to both data frames. Now again, the requirements are that part number exists in inventory and sales. So if we look at part number one, we see that it exists or is matched 3 times in the sales data frame, which is why in the result we see it. Part number two, however, is in inventory, but there were no transactions associated with it, so it's omitted from the result. Part three is in inventory and sales. It's matched once, so it shows up. However, part 110 did experience a sales transaction, but it was not listed in inventory, so it too is omitted. The inner join is a more constraining join than the full join, but it's useful nonetheless because it gives us very targeted information.